they're sending out millions and millions of ballots. Are they sending them to all Democrats? Who are they sending them to? Where are they going? You know, et cetera, et cetera. This is going to be the second biggest political scandal in history. The first biggest is the Russian crap that we've been going through for 3.5 years.
What are you doing about it?
We have many lawyers, and we've actually been winning many cases. How about where they have the ballots counted, and the ballots have to be in by November 3rd, Election Day, but they don't have to be counted for 2 weeks later? Well, that means you're never going to know who won the election. You know, it's going to be 2 weeks later. I want to see on November 3rd who won the election.
Oh, so much to unpack. Just earlier today, though, Donald Trump called mail-in voting the means by which many, many Americans, Democratic voters, Republican voters, plan to cast their ballots this year due to the pandemic, the second biggest political scandal in our history. Second only to the Russia investigation. Comments like that are why both Democrats and Republicans are bracing for a potential contested election in just 25 days. Washington Post reports this, quote, the campaigns of President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden are preparing for all scenarios, each amassing robust legal teams to prepare for post-November 3rd disputes, in addition to monitoring Election Day activity and ballot counting. An uncharted battle over who the next president will be after a campaign that has roiled and exhausted Americans could severely test the nation's faith in its election system and undermine the principle that the president should be selected by voters rather than Congress or the courts, experts said. We're back with Jonathan Lemire, A.B. Stoddard, and Jason Johnson. You know, I keep coming back to, and A.B., I asked you about this, the Christopher Wray video, the video that the FBI put out this week, where the FBI sought to take, I thought, this extraordinary step of producing a public video to counter that message from the president. But because he's the president, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the campaigns of Joe Biden, the campaign of Donald Trump, the sitting attorney general, and we learned this week from ProPublica and the New York Times that they have unleashed prosecutors to bring election fraud cases that you usually aren't allowed to bring in the days before an election. What should we be prepared for, AB, in terms of sort of expanding our audacity meters when it comes to Donald Trump?
Well, he's very much telegraphed already what he's going to do, which is to say that any votes that come in after he gets a good wave of Republican votes on November 3rd aren't valid. He continues to lie about mail-in balloting when he says they're being sent out unsolicited. 5 states do all mail-in voting, and then this year an additional handful of states, because of COVID, are sending people not applications, but directly sending them ballots. In only one of those states could it even possibly be consequential, and that's that only Nevada in that group of states would be a swing state. So it's ridiculous to pretend that he's not going to be able to win New Jersey because they're sending these ballots out unsolicited. But the idea that Chris Wray is this sort of lone voice willing to buck Bill Barr at the DOJ and then the president to come out proactively to try to make this case really shows us just what kind of tension we're going to see when Bill Barr is trying to make the case for the president's narrative and threaten lots of suits and lob all this criticism about people, quote, playing with fire, like he said on CNN last month. You're going to have people like Chris Wray stepping up and saying that so far they haven't seen any evidence of fraud. And that tension, who is going to join Chris Wray? Will Governor Ducey of Arizona, who has a Democratic Secretary of State and has been quiet throughout all of this, when, maybe it's close in Arizona, is he going to step forward and say, our count's going just fine, thank you? What is going to happen in those states? What is Ron DeSantis going to do in Florida, a close ally, the president who wants to be president soon? What kind of, wild theories might he come up with, or will he back down? And so that's going to be this really interesting thing. Who are the people who stand by the system, and who are the people who play games, trying to go along with the president in the days to come? More than 2/3 of Americans are prepared for an extended count, and that's a really good thing. They know from the 28 midterms that this has already happened, the primaries this year in a pandemic, that extended counts take a while. And I think Americans are more prepared than the president and the Republicans understand.
You know, Jason, I just want to flesh out the picture, though, because I think it's more than a nutty president who knows he's going to lose tweeting things. I mean, I think what the foiled plot against Gretchen Whitmer maybe makes real is that the tweets are acted upon sometimes. And whether they're cause and effect, I think that's a question only law enforcement can answer. But there are dots that can be connected between the things he says and the things bad people do. And I want to read you this from Politico. Trump campaign ready to unleash thousands of poll watchers on Election Day. The campaign has established what it says is a 50,000-plus army of volunteer observers across an array of battleground states like North Carolina and Pennsylvania, where operations are already underway. Poll watchers monitor everything from voting machines to the processing of ballots to checking voter ID. They are not permitted to interact directly with voters, but depending on local regulations, they can relay problems to local election officials or campaign higher-ups. Now, there is a sort of civic piece of poll watchers and some history of it, but that is not the vein in which Donald Trump is talking about a 50,000-plus army, is it?
No, Nicole. And that's very much connected to what we saw in Michigan this week. The president is raising an illegal white nationalist terrorist army that he wants to go out there and intimidate people. So we have both the legal and the extra legal. From the legal standpoint, we see things like what just happened in Wisconsin, where the Milwaukee Bucks had actually agreed with NBA players to turn their arena into a polling station that would be useful during the pandemic. And then they had to shut it down because Republicans said, well, it's technically past the deadline. So any ballots that are in that location, if you vote there, will invalidate everything at that polling station. We will see wholesale attempts to invalidate where people have voted by the hundreds and thousands. And then you've got militia poll workers going out there. And here's what's key about what happened this week. It's not just that Gretchen Whitmer was obviously, protected and this plot was foiled, but it's intimidating local people. It's intimidating a county commissioner. It's intimidating a local election official. The fact that you've got these white nationalist groups, Gretchen Whitmer has a lot of protection that your local board of election people are not going to have. And if somebody throws a Molotov cocktail through my house and I live in Maricopa, Arizona, I may not go to work the next day, or I may be intimidated into not making the right decision.
Jonathan Lemire, here's my question for you. Donald Trump has been talking about how if he loses, it's because it was rigged. But he never says anything about the problems applying if he wins also. Why does he think only a result that has him losing means it was rigged? Why aren't his problems just generally about the vote?
Well, Nicole, you answered your own question there. The president seems to only care, of course, about his victory. Let's remember, in 2016, a race he did win. He did allege voter fraud then because he was upset that he lost the popular vote and suggested that the margin of invalid votes cast for Hillary Clinton was about 3 million or so. The exact same margin that Hillary did win the popular vote. This is something, it's part of a larger picture here. And a top Republican operative, someone very close to the White House, just told me yesterday that they sort of see the writing on the wall here. They know the president's in trouble. They know that he is, with just 3 odd weeks to go, he is sinking in terms of support because of that widely panned debate performance. And then especially his COVID-19 diagnosis, which, of course, just reinforces to many Americans how he mismanaged the entire crisis. Their hope, the strategist said, is that in the next few weeks, the president can close the gap, can tighten the margins in these key battleground states. And they do believe he may have an advantage in terms of the vote cast on Election Day itself, because so many Democrats have been turning to mail-in voting. And they hope that day, if things are close, they can kick it to the courts, and therefore that will be where the decision is made. And they feel that might be their only chance to win, which is sort of a deeply cynical approach, but one right now the Republicans are hanging their hats on.
Oh, what a state of affairs. Jonathan Lemire, put your mask on, get one of those shields as well. Stay safe there. A.B. Stoddard, Jason Johnson, thank you all for spending some time with us. Up next, 2 new reports on Donald Trump's taxes today. We'll talk about what has been uncovered and what legal implications exist for the president or perhaps private citizen, Donald Trump.